'Cause the boys are back in town, and we're burning it down. Ashes to ashes, burning down.
Welcome to another episode of Neat Network and Cool Capacity, featuring your hosts, Rick Taylor from the SCTE Central Indiana chapter and Eric Fallows of the SCTE Great Lakes chapter.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Today is Friday, May 10th. It's about 65 degrees outside up here in Michigan. Rick, can you believe this is our 10th episode? What a milestone for us, man.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine an idea and then sticking through, almost on a monthly basis. It's been fun. Every one of them's been fun. They grow a little bit each time. They get a little better. But yeah, 10. Pretty awesome, Eric.
So as far as CLC goes at this point, we're completely done, right? We did our debrief as a subcommittee. Is there anything else that we have to check at this point, or are we in good shape?
2024 is officially wrapped. We met beginning of the week. Went through the feedback and comments and things like that. A lot of very good comments, a lot of very positive feedback, a lot of good suggestions for next year as we start planning probably the next month and a half, looking at some new folks to be on the subcommittee. So we've had quite a bit of interest there. So Robin and I will circle around that and see who's going to make the cut for the subcommittee next go around for 2025. They're starting to talk at national on, where are we going to host next year, things
Hawaii?
like that. So Hawaii is what we keep saying Hawaii, but I don't think that's happening.
What about Alaska?
That's what Barry was on the call Monday, and Barry said, hey, we got a place, we got to, we can make this happen. I'm sure the folks at national will reel us back in and find another phenomenal. This year in Phoenix, the weather was great. Last year, Oklahoma was just an absolutely inviting city. So I'm sure the folks in National will weigh all the options and find out what works best. So, but yeah, 2024 is behind us, and we'll be ready
to move on with 2025, right? Nice. Yeah, to touch on the CLC bit too, I remember in Oklahoma, it took forever to get that group picture together, right? And so we had a drone this year, and it was just in and out extremely quick, even though we were all looking up at the sun and squinting, if you will. It was nice.
Yeah.
The keynote, that was a major hit as well too, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, right, we got positive feedback about the picture, to your point. I think if you drag a bunch of people that are in dress clothes out 90-degree sun, they'll comply to whatever ask. So we got through that quick, and then a lot of good feedback on Ben Whiting, just outstanding. Still scratching my head on a couple things he did, and then real neat that he was able to hang out a little bit after too. So some folks got to chat with him afterwards. But yeah, all in, I think, one of my favorite just because of the location, and I had family close, but I would say just another real successful event, a lot of good stuff. Some good feedback from the session you did, Eric.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I ended up in Alad's weekly newsletter last week for it, which was pretty cool with the mentorship piece with Andy in the Rocky Mountain chapter. And then also a shout out to the Penn-Ohio chapter as well. I know we reviewed the feedback on all the different sessions, right? Adding the technology and automation session scored extremely high.
Oh yeah. So really, even the lowest scoring was still a pretty solid score. So even our least attended, our least favorite, still had good attendance, and positive responses to it. So that's all we can ask for.
And I know you're coming fresh off of your vendor day. Can you describe that? How did that go, Rick?
Well, it's one of the best in the country. Let's start there. No, it was per usual. We got some folks that are experts at setting that up, making sure that it flows very well. We did have a little hiccup in the end with sending the Jeopardy game back. Hopefully we won't have that error, but all in, I'm going to say we 33, 35. We had one BP team compete. I think there was 8 teams total, maybe 9. Good event. Dust is still settling. We're still digging through the financials to see where we landed, but all in, everybody seemed happy. There was a lot of good foot traffic. Lunch turned out well. That's always promising. Looking forward to our next big event will be the golf outing in September. So looking forward to getting transitioned to planning for that.
Now, will you be on the course as a Sasquatch for your own course, or no, is that only for ours?
So I'm having trouble with my Sasquatch suit. So I outgrew that one. I'm on Amazon trying to get another one, but you never know what you'll see. So I will be out on the course, I imagine. If somebody wanted to golf more than me, they could have my spot. I really enjoy the getting together with the vendors, and I'm more into hosting the event than golfing at the event, if that makes sense.
I'm with you on that piece. Yeah, I think I stopped golfing a couple of years ago. I just kind of looked like, Happy Gilmore, like in the very beginning out there on the course. You hit 250 yards with one ball, and then the next you're whiffing. So I'm not that good of a golfer.
I'm not sure I've ever hit one 250 yards, so there it is. What's going on with the? What's the chapter up, Michigan? What are we up to? What's next?
What is next? Let's see. So we've got a training on May 22nd with Ken Wright of radio detection. That'll be an underground locating. And then after that, in June, we've got a transport networks training as well. And then we have our golf outing on the 4th of July. It'll be the 3rd annual Steve Timko golf outing. And we're bringing back the golf cannon, and we're also going to introduce the golf dartboard. So those will be fun things on the course. So if you can come up with that Sasquatch suit, let's go.
All right, sounds good. No, it sounds yeah. Hopefully I can make it up there. I missed the vendor show up there. Maybe I can slide in there for the golf outing. I want to see this golf dartboard that you talk about.
Yeah, it's something we wanted to do last year, and the guy I spoke with about it, like last year, it kind of seemed like one of those emails at first, because it didn't have an email signature. It just had his name, and I'm like, okay, this is just, some random trying to contact us to get our business. And no, it turns out, after I called him last year, he's like, hey, I saw you guys have an event at Heartland Glen. We would love to partake in it. And I'm like, sure. And so we got the cost just a couple months ago. And yeah, it should be fun. It's something we haven't done in a while in regard to the golf cannon. I think the last time we may have done it was 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
Nice. That's the only way I can hit a golf ball far is by shooting it out of a cannon. So
how about trainings for you, Rick?
So the next one we got on our radar, we've got a fiber training coming up, a hands-on fiber training for 421. So really look at the fusion splicing part of it, but also look at some of the troubleshooting skills, mapping, things like that. So 421, we'll be doing that in Indianapolis, and looking forward to that one. That's always a good response. We usually get a lot of folks that want to come and check that out. So got a couple experts in fiber coming in to train away, and we're looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, I think we're ready to bring our guest on today. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Mike Odell. He's a distinguished engineer for field connectivity ops for Comcast HQ, and he's also an SCTE board member for the Penn-Ohio chapter.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Eric, Rick, it's a pleasure to be here and chat about the society and talk about our chapters.
You nailed it. That's what it's about. Just bringing some awareness around the chapters and all things chapter and stuff like that. So before we get too deep into this, Mike, off the top of your head, what's coming up for your chapter? You guys got any training scheduled? New video releases? That's a thing I keep seeing. What's new with the chapter?
We got a lot going on, man. How much time do we got? Because I'll go out on a limb and say Penn-Ohio is the greatest chapter in the country. I heard you prop your greatest vendor show, so I'll pick that fight, Rick. No, as you mentioned, and also Eric, thanks for calling out our session at CLC. I wasn't there, but we did have two folks that are newer on the chapter that I wanted to experience CLC, and we had 3 people overall that are either board members or associate board members deliver that presentation on what we're doing with our social media, which brings me to our training videos. We release every Wednesday our medium length content, and then we've gotten really active in posting our shorts on both YouTube and or Instagram on Mondays and Fridays. But the real content, the training content, comes out every Wednesday. So we're in the middle of a series on small form pluggable optics that is going pretty well. And in the can, we have a series coming up on passive optical networks. We've got some other great training already recorded. So yeah, that's going really well. And we're super proud of the traction that's getting, some of the content that we're putting out there. Coming up on our calendar, our vendor show is actually the 23rd this month, so a little less than 2 weeks away. We're really excited about that, which we'll call it the second best vendor show next to Rick's chapter. But we're pretty proud of that one too. So we'll have our Cable Tech games. We're going to demonstrate the new combined coaxial game, just to demonstrate the work that the Cable Tech Games subcommittee's been doing for the last couple of years. And then we have a leadership training panel scheduled to go on during lunch at the vendor show. So we'll have our vendor show, the Cable Tech Games going on, and then at lunch we'll have a panel of really great folks, some SVPs from Comcast, Armstrong, Jill Banks from SCTE Nationals coming, and a leader from the Women in Cable Television chapter in Pittsburgh. So they'll be talking about training and their experience on leadership. So those are the big ones on the docket. We have a Wi-Fi 7 training that we're going to deliver in video in July with Ruckus. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that one. But we're trying to be really active. There's a lot of stuff going on in the chapter that's really good. The social media platforms that you mentioned is kind of our big thing right now. Dedicating a lot of time and energy to getting that going and building a library of content that's accessible to anyone, anywhere, at any time. We'd like them to be SCTE members. We put a lot of how-to videos in there on how to navigate scte.org, how to find certain things, whether it's primers or micro lessons, membership, other features. So we've been putting some short videos into a playlist there about SCTE resources, as well as other industry and technology related training. So a lot going on there.
Mike, how was that idea conceived, right? Like all of us as chapters, we use Facebook, we use Twitter, some use TikTok. Can you describe the inception of that idea with the video medium?
Yeah, for sure. So, I resisted YouTube for a long time, right? Because it was something that I thought that the young people did as a platform for entertainment. And then COVID happened. And, we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't interact with people. A lot of services were not available. And so I found myself going more and more onto YouTube. how to fix the leaky shower faucet, right? How to change actually I had to look it up yesterday. My wife had a taillight go out of her Kia Sorento, and so I popped the bulb, and I was like, okay, well, how do I get this taillight assembly off to change this bulb? I found a 90-second YouTube video on exactly what I needed to do, right? And so when I came out of COVID, I was like, man, from a training perspective, like there's a lot of really good content out there. So I started looking around at cable television related content on YouTube, and I wasn't finding a lot. Like Brady Volpe has a great channel. Like I subscribe to that one. I watch it regularly. But I really didn't see a lot of other stuff. And then the other part of that, Eric, was, historically the chapter training model was to take folks out of production, to put them in a room for, 4, 6, 8 hours, whatever. And only the people in the room got access to that content. And, the MSOs had to give up that production for the day to invest in the education of their technicians. And, when we came out of COVID, the workforce was different. It was less likely or apt to take technicians out of production for training for a day. And so we thought, if we're going to get to this same population of people, or even a bigger population of people, and still provide relevant training, which is what we believe the chapter is supposed to do, then we're going to have to go to a video platform and a medium like YouTube. And so that's really where it came from. And there was a lot of excited animated board calls about how are we going to do this? How are we going to pay for this? How are we going to get credit for it? And I'm like, you know what? I don't know the answers to these questions, but quite frankly, I don't care, because I feel like it's the right thing to do. And we just need to do it. So, with a lot of hand wringing and, anxiety, we just decided to start recording everything, and, reached out to a friend of mine who is in the digital marketing and media business. And I was like, look, dude, I know some stuff about cable television, but I don't know anything about making cool videos or video editing. Like, can you help me out? And so we figured it out, and we just started recording all of our content. And the great part about that is if you're not relying on renting a room and taking techs out of production, you can record content anywhere, anytime, and then post it later, right? So it made it more convenient to schedule with the subject matter experts in the industry around their schedules and travel budgets and other things, to get the material for us to then, start building this library. So that's where it came from, and we're still figuring it out. But I think we're up to 90 videos up there now.
That's excellent.
Wow. Yeah. Just awesome that you guys are in that space, really innovating from a chapter standpoint. Short videos, everybody has a shorter attention span. We all use YouTube like you do, Mike, right, to find that tail light bulb we got to change. I definitely do, but then to bring some of that content versus trying to schedule and bring it in, just super impressed. That's why you guys are arguably one of the best chapters, or the best chapter, because you guys stay in front of things like that, and that's fascinating.
Yeah, we argue about this all the time, and when I say argue, it's in good nature, right? Because there's a lot of value to SCTE, and part of it is the in-person events and the social aspects of it. To your point, whether you golf or not, going to the golf outing is a great day to just spend with your peers and your colleagues in the vendor community, and just have that face-to-face camaraderie, and that's one part of it. But we're not just a social club, right? We host these events where we can all get together and we can, share, whether it's tips, tricks, relational stuff. But at the end of the day, our mission is our members, and training them is the single most important thing we can do. And that's how we try to invest our time and energy, is to serve our membership. And, for me, the membership is the entire technician community. social media plays such a big part of it with, like the Facebook teams, like or community pages like the Cable Gods and the Cable Cowboys and all that kind of stuff. I follow those too. Yeah, right. Because the technicians, we're all trying to solve the same problems, right? Regardless of the name on the shirt or kind of your role in the business, is we're trying to provide better service for our customers. And a lot of our technology overlaps. The names on the equipment may be different, but fundamentally it's all the same. So, YouTube, I think, is a cool platform because, quite frankly, I don't care if it's a Cox Tech or an Armstrong Tech or a Charter Tech or whoever that happens to stumble over our videos. If it's meaningful and relevant to them and their jobs, cool. Like we want you to be an SCTE member. If you don't have a chapter, we'd be happy to have you in ours. But, at the end of the day, it's about trying to take care of our customers, and a big part of that's educating our workforce.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is the content that your chapter puts out is so accessible. In other words, you really don't have to go looking for it. It shows up in my LinkedIn feeds, right? It shows up in some of those other social media platforms. It's right there for you.
Well, and that was the goal, right? Was to make it accessible to anybody, and we tried to not make it like so complex that the beginning techs, the younger techs, maybe less tenured, can't understand it. And we try to, with every video series that we do, sort of start at the beginning and say, like, what are the basics? What is it? How does it work? What's the evolution of that particular thing? And then get into more of the little deeper nuanced context of it, so that no matter kind of where you are in the business, there's hopefully something in there for everybody. And we're going to continue to build on that theme and say, I don't care if you've been around for 35 years or 3 months. We'd like to think that if you have a question, hopefully we can, help you figure it out and make you a better tech and take better care of your customers.
I'm gonna jump in with a question about the videos and the video series that you guys are doing. So far, of the 90-ish videos, what was your favorite topic? What do you think the best videos that you guys put out, and what was the topic? Can't say all.
Yeah, and I can't. All right, so I'm gonna get fangirl here for a minute. Ron Rannick did a video with me based on an article that he wrote for Telecommunications Technology magazine, or Communications Technology magazine, a long time ago. And I read it, and I remember it like being earth-shaking to me at the time. I think I was still either a technician or a supervisor when that one came out, and it was on the impact of temperature on coaxial attenuation. And it basically blew a myth that I had learned as a new tech out of the water, and really made me question everything that I was ever taught. It was one of those moments where I was like, wait, is this true? Have I been being lied to my whole life? And Ron is arguably one of the smartest guys in the world, and just an amazingly interesting, genuinely kind human being. So to get to record the video for that article that he wrote so long ago was really cool. So that's probably my favorite in the content creation experience. And a little teaser, the SCTE is going through and writing these things that they call technical monographs. I think that's in working group 1, where they're basically these brief descriptions of very technical terms, whether it be like return loss or standing wave ratios or whatever. They're going to write these very short technical monographs that are descriptions of these technical terms as a baseline for like all of the other technical papers that are out there. It was an old practice that I think was sort of abandoned or forgotten about, and it's coming back. But I asked Ron when I heard that these technical monographs were coming back, I was like, Ron, what if we recorded a short video about each one of these technical monographs? And he's like, yeah, I think that would be great. So we have that in the backlog, is something we're going to do, hopefully starting later this year, that I'm really pretty excited about.
No, that's awesome. And you called it, Ron's unbelievable. So to get time with him get the opportunity, and then to tie it back to an article that you read, years ago or several years ago. We won't go that far, but man, how cool is that? So that's really neat. Appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good question. And some of these engineers that built the business, the legends that are starting to retire and to kind of fade off into their retirements, and rightfully so. It's been intentional for me to try and get as much of them kind of recorded in video, sharing their knowledge and expertise for future generations. Ron is technically retired, but he's still super active. And as long as he's willing to, share his knowledge and expertise, I'm going to mash the record button and try and capture as much as I can for posterity, for future generations.
That's fantastic.
Speaking of Ron, there was a guy at the expo that's competing with him on the amount of ribbons that he's got on his badge. I was like, this guy is all the way down to the floor, right? Ron is close, but I'm like, geez Louise here.
Yeah, that's a funny one. So like a couple of years ago, I think Brady Volpe and Mia made a badge because they wanted to make a badge that anyone but Ron could have. And it was the Ron's friend badge. We're like, look, we're all Ron's friends, so we can wear this one, but you can't. So we're trying to make up new ribbons so that we can look as impressive as he does with all of the ribbons.
So how long have you been on the Penn-Ohio chapter, Mike? Just describe that experience.
Yeah, so it's been probably 20 years.
Wow.
And going back to when I was a technician at AT&T Broadband, I was a network maintenance technician, and I was in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania. The Penn-Ohio chapter was still in Pittsburgh. We've been around for 34 years now, I think, since 1990. So my first exposure to the Penn-Ohio chapter was somebody said, hey, there's these cable games things going on in Pittsburgh. Do you want to go do it? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what that is. But sure, like it sounds like a healthy competition. So yeah, sign me up. So, Beaver Falls is a Pittsburgh suburb about 35 minutes or so northwest of Pittsburgh. So I drove down to the city, went to this vendor show, right, where I got to see all of the latest and greatest technology, touch it, feel it, ask questions of the vendors, grabbed a bunch of business cards, and got to compete in the cable games. Well, the first year I got my butt handed to me, but I was like, this is super cool, man. I didn't have any idea what I was walking into, but I got to meet a bunch of vendors. I got to see a bunch of cool technology, got a handful of tweakers like everybody always does. And I had fun with the cable games. I got to meet other techs that I had never met before that worked for the same company, different company, and it was just a really cool experience. So I started looking into the SCTE because at that time, the vendor show and the cable tech games was about the only thing I knew about SCTE. So I realized there was a chapter that I could, join, and AT&T Broadband would pay for it. And I was like, okay, cool. So, I joined, and then I started getting more involved. I got on the mailing list. They started sending me, the training notices. And so, I just started getting plugged into the training and meeting more people. And, just kind of grew from there. The more involved I got, I became a regular competitor in the cable tech games. And then the one year I finally won, and I forget what year it was. It was like 1999 or 2000, somewhere around there. It was like the second or third year that I started playing the cable games, and I actually won the Penn-Ohio event, and I got to go to Expo for the first time in my life, and it was in Philadelphia that year. Now I won't tell you how that turned out, but I will tell you that the experience of going to Expo for the first time as a technician, I say this without equivocation, it changed my life. Because up until that point, cable television was a job for me. I didn't realize how big the industry was and how vast the technology was and how transformative it was until I saw it in person at Expo. And it just lit me on fire, man. Like I went to every training session that I could go to. I met as many people as I could go to. I visited as many booths as I could get to in 3 days. Like I just drank that thing in. And I walked out of there thinking, if the only way that I can get back here is to win the cable games, like, I'm beating everybody. Like, and I won it like 5 or 6 more times just so I could go back to Expo and compete in the Cable Tech games. But it wasn't really about the Cable Tech games. Like, that was important to me. I would have loved to have won and gotten my name on the Astoria Cup, which, fun fact, my name is on the Astoria Cup, but it's not on the side with the winners. It's on the bottom in Sharpie. So if you ever get a chance to hold the trophy, flip it over, you'll see my name on the bottom.
That's too funny.
So yeah, that's kind of how I got involved, was really just through the cable games. Had no idea what I was getting into. And then, eventually got into chapter leadership as the vice president, and I did 2 terms as president, I think 5 years in total over the last decade. And then started getting more involved in national with the chair of the Cable Tech Games. I served as the chair for that for 6 years, which is why I retired from competing, because now I got to go to Expo as the chair of the Cable Games without having to actually compete, which is better. Because I don't have to go get my butt kicked. I get to hand the trophy to somebody that actually deserves it. And that's a lot of fun. And, get to continue to interact with the vendors and the technicians from all over the country that are, just spectacularly awesome at what they do, and to build relationships with them. So, SCTE led me to understand that this industry is more than just a job. It can be, an amazing career that I've done for almost 30 years now, starting as an installer in Warren, Ohio, as a country boy with no college education, to now be a distinguished engineer in a Fortune 30 company. Does not happen without SCTE. It just doesn't. So that's my story.
That is truly inspiring to hear it from, hey, you want to go compete in this local vendor show, to arguably, changed your thought on your career. And I've said this, we've talked about it on different podcasts and things like that, Eric and I, and I will echo the fact that being part of the SCTE, from a personal growth, professional growth, for myself, I mean, it's been phenomenal, right? To be part of national stuff. For me, it's CLC. For you, it was the cable games. Keep them challenging, things like that. But just an awesome story, and inspiring to hear that, SCTE really had a pivotal part of that. You checked a lot of boxes too. Questions I was going to ask, but you went right through them.
No, I give the SCTE a lot of credit. And, I recently stepped away from serving as the Cable Games chair. Justin Stiles from Charter is now doing a great job with that committee. I'm still involved, but really as a, advisor, spectator at this point. But I've kind of migrated into the standard side of the business, which is a part of SCTE that a lot of folks don't necessarily understand or know is out there. And the network operations subcommittees that are out there, the measurement subcommittees and the working groups that are there are doing just incredible work to, create standards and best practices and operational practices documents that people can download for free if they're SCTE members. So I've really enjoyed, some of the work that's going on there to help hopefully contribute to that, and continue to build good standards and operational and training documents that anybody in the society can consume and use. So I'm still really engaged at the national level, just in a different way. And I will say, if you want to get involved, especially start at the chapter level. And Rick, I think I've seen the same experience as you with my career trajectory at Comcast, really paralleled with my involvement with both the chapter and also the national organization. Because it's a great platform to practice your skills of leadership, communication, delivering technical presentations, in addition to all of the wealth of material and people that the SCTE has to offer. And I tell people this all the time. SCTE is an amazing organization, and so is Cable Labs in the amount of resources that they have. But to me, the most amazing thing, and Ron Rannick's an example of this, is I've never reached out to someone in the SCTE and asked them for help or their technical experience or expertise and been told no. Never. In over 20 years, if I've reached out to somebody and asked for their time or expertise, they have willingly and graciously given it, which for an all volunteer organization that is comprised of as many different pieces of the organization, whether it's the vendor community, the engineering community, the operator community, like everybody is just so willing to volunteer their time and expertise. It's unheard of. So I've benefited so greatly from that over the years from a bunch of different people. And so all of the things that I'm doing now is to try to pay that forward and to be a resource for anybody else that's interested in getting engaged and involved to help develop themselves and their careers. Because, there've been a bunch of people that have done that for me in the last 20 years.
I'm with you both on that whole thought. And I've only been a chapter member since 2019 or so, but to your point about the trajectory of things it can do for your career, it's definitely enhanced mine. And I feel like without the SCTE, my career wouldn't be as fruitful as it is today.
Yeah, there's a lot of examples about that, Eric, too. And I've seen it in our chapter and other chapters. Where when you get somebody that gets actively engaged in the chapter, they start to personally develop and grow, and it changes their perception on the possibilities that this industry has for them and for their career. Plus, it creates awareness and a safe space for them to practice their communication skills, their technical skills, build their networks and things like that. And I've done some leadership presentations around the parallel trajectories that my involvement with the SCTE has had on my career, and I firmly believe that I've seen it too many times to refute it. So if you're interested in making a career out of this cable television thing, go find a local SCTE chapter and get involved.
100%. That's some of the best advice. If you want to be in the industry, you want to succeed in the industry, get in with the chapters wherever you can. Start small, and you're right. There's a lot of perception behind it. It starts to change your mindset when you come around the community of individuals involved with SCTE. So, really good stuff there, Mike. What about getting into some personal stuff, Eric? Let's. We know Mike is on one of the best chapters, multiple winner of cable games. Mike, what do you do for fun? What do you do when you're not writing, reading, making videos, things like that? What hobbies do you have outside of work and the SCTE?
I was going to say, we've heard stories from Brad Grove, so let's get into it.
Yeah, so I can't sit still. I recognized a long time ago if I sit still or don't have something to do, I get in trouble. My mother will attest. Happy Mother's Day, Mom. So I try to stay busy. My wife and I, we've been married almost 33 years now. We have four great kids, now all out of college and into their careers. So, when they were young, got into coaching youth sports. All of my kids played sports and also did 4-H. We're big into agriculture. I live on a small farm here in Northeast Ohio. Been involved in both of those things. I'm still a small hobby farmer in my spare time. I raise beef cows and poultry and goats, chickens, horses, ducks, all that. But I also coach high school basketball in my spare time. I'm a volunteer assistant coach at Kennedy Catholic High School in Hermitage, Pennsylvania, which is a really good basketball program. my youngest son graduated from there in 2017, won a state championship with the boys team at Kennedy Catholic, and over the last 3 years we've won 2 state championships on the girls team where I coach. So I'm pretty busy from October, November through about March with basketball and farming and cable television and SCTE. So I try to stay busy and keep myself out of trouble.
Well, I'm blown away that you're a basketball coach. I just can't even wrap my head around it. I've seen you on different calls, things for work, SCTE stuff virtually. I think it was Oklahoma was probably the first time I met you in person, Mike. And I'm a big guy, and usually I'm one of the taller people in the room. So the basketball thing makes a lot of sense. I'm assuming, did you play basketball in high school?
I did, but that was long ago and far away. I wasn't really dedicated to it. I loved the sport, but I grew up on a farm and I was busy doing a bunch of other stuff. So I didn't dedicate a ton of time to basketball when I was younger, but I've had a passion for the game for my whole life. And then when my kids were young and started playing sports, I got into coaching basketball. We jokingly say that coaching is the other family business in my house, because our youngest daughter is a high school volleyball coach at the same school where I coach basketball. My wife's been a high school volleyball coach for 20 years. My youngest son's a high school basketball coach. So
stays in the family.
It does. Yeah. We're pretty passionate about our sports and really as a means of teaching life lessons through sports, because sports has been really good to us as a family. So we started a volleyball club too that we've managed for several years to promote volleyball and travel sports. So we stay pretty busy and actively engaged in youth sports as a way of trying to mentor and teach life lessons that are bigger than sports to hopefully help them be successful in their academic careers and their future professional careers. So it's something else that I'm passionate about besides farming. And that one I've really seen kind of uptick since COVID, and folks recognize some of the vulnerabilities of like the commercial food supply. If I could grow trees and make toilet paper, I'd probably do that too. Because everybody remembers the great toilet paper shortage of 2020.
Yes.
But just the lack of availability of simple things like ground beef and eggs and chicken in the grocery stores, I think it's made a lot of people take a little more active participation in contributing to their food supply. And I did too. So we built a big greenhouse during COVID when we had some spare time on our hands, and we started growing more vegetables and started putting out more cows and meat chickens and laying hens, and it just kind of continued to the point where we're now part of the food supply chain for our local community. And anything that in excess that we have, I sell to my neighbors at really discount prices, cheaper than you can buy in the stores, just to help contribute to the local food supply and economy. So I'm pretty passionate about agriculture and participating in the contribution of food to the neighborhood.
That's great stuff. Curious, what is the favorite place you've visited in the world?
Wow. Okay, so Bear Lake in Utah, right on the Utah-Idaho border, is one of the most spectacularly beautiful places I've ever been. That's just natural beauty. The 322 corridor along the Allegheny River between State College and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, is also just breathtakingly beautiful in natural beauty. In terms of man-made things, I did get to see the Sistine Chapel and the painting of Adam on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. That was pretty breathtaking. And the Trevi Fountain in Old Rome. I just stood in the rain and stared at it for hours because it was just amazing. So that's a kind of a big list, but those are the places that, if I'm looking to escape into my memory and, see something that's truly, profound and beautiful, whether it's man-made or God-made, those are the places I go.
Wow. Yeah, I'm feeling not so much like a travel expert anymore. Rick, have you been to any of the places that Mike brought up?
I'm 10 minutes ago still trying to wrap my head around how Mike has any time to do anything, and I would ask, can you make a YouTube video on how you manage your time? I'm blown away, not just by the locations and where you've been. I've heard of the Bear Lake. Haven't been there, but I heard it's just magical. But man, just to hear everything that you're involved with, the things that you do for your community, just truly inspiring, Mike. Outside of the inspiration you bring to the chapters and things like that, that's where my mind's stuck, Eric. Is I'm still, if you think you don't have enough time in the day, what would Mike Odell do? And that's going to be, I'm going to live by this for a week or so, if I can.
Well, I'll go back to the part where if I don't have something constructive to do, I will get in trouble.
I understand that.
So I know that about myself. I say I have 4 kids. My wife says she has 5. So I try to, remain constructive and, look, the thing that's cool about SCTE and Comcast, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm fascinated by just about everything, whether it's art, music, nature, science. I'm kind of a nerd in that I'm fascinated by a lot of stuff, and there's so much out there that if you're just interested in learning it, and that's what I love about YouTube, right? Is somebody sent me a video the other day. It was a TED Talk on YouTube, and I think it was called Quantum Physics for Babies. It was fascinating. Just like, my daughter and I will sit down and watch a documentary on like serial killers, just to, the anatomy of a serial killer. We're pretty sure my youngest son carries all the traits of some of the most accomplished like mob bosses and serial killers. So we keep a pretty close eye on him. But that in agriculture, the genetics of the agriculture industry, it's just, there's so much interesting things in life. In people, I love people. They're the most interesting things on the planet. So I just try to keep busy and do things that are meaningful and productive, and keep myself out of trouble.
No, it's great. Every family has one that checks those boxes, so it's not just your son.
Okay.
I think it exists everywhere. Interesting, we've met before in person. We've been on different calls and things, but this is the first time I've really got to know you, Mike, and what's driving Mike Odell in both personal and professional. And one thing I want to ask you is, with this motivation you have, other than trying to stay out of trouble, who do you think, what's the most influential person that has been in your life, that really, when you get in a tough spot, you think, hey, what would he do or she do to get through this? Is there a big inspiration? I'm sure your kids motivate you, your wife probably motivates you some, things like that, but is there one person that you could narrow down that inspiration?
I mean, yes and no. Right. So I think all of us as men idolize our fathers. He's kind of our first hero figure. Right. And mine is too. I love my dad. We still have a great relationship. He was always my hero growing up. And, he taught me to play for the name on the back. And, my grandfather, my great grandfather were good men. And I tried really hard not to mess the name up. So that's one. But as an adult, I kind of looked at, there were other figures that I tried to model certain aspects of their personality or their bearing or the way they treated people, and tried to take different aspects from different people that I respected and admired and incorporate them into my life. So it's not one person. I'm not trying to be the next Michael Jordan. I'm trying to be the first Michael Odell, and not try to mimic anyone too much. But to your point, there's my wife's uncle has had this really regal bearing that I just admired, and I was like, if I could walk into a room and carry myself like he does, I'd like to be able to do that. And I've worked for technical leaders. Mike Kohler's one that had a lot of influence on my career when I was younger. Glenn Hatt, other technical professionals, Jim Mosier. There's something about everyone that you can take away and say, I really appreciate or respect that thing about that person, and incorporate parts of that into how you handle yourself and treat people and other things. So, I don't think it's any one person. I think it's a lot of people that I've tried to, borrow from and become the person that I am. But, at the end of the day, my dad's still my hero.
Great answer. That was a good question, Rick.
Yeah, absolutely great answer. And love how you answered that, and then how you look at that and the different pieces, kind of the Mike Odell puzzle, we'll call it, and how you grab traits and characteristics. So, no, I really appreciate that.
Well, we have a saying in our house: everybody's an example. They're just not all good ones. And so we try to be good ones, but you can even learn from the mistakes of other people. And I'm a big fan of history and of people too. And scientists from history are like one of my favorite areas of study, where I like to take some of the famous quotes from certain scientists or people from history, because there's a lot of logic and sense there that if you study, you can avoid making the mistakes that other people have made in the past, and try and chart your own path. So there really isn't anything new. I think we're just trying to be the best versions of ourselves by leveraging from other people, and hopefully model that to be good examples for others. But we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes, and we can learn from our own mistakes. And my kids have learned a lot from me over the years, I think.
Well, I always call that paying tuition.
Oh, exactly, Rick. Yeah. Yep. I was just thinking about a visual I saw the other day, and it was like, you learn the most from your mistakes. It's like a bar chart, and you learn the most from your mistakes, and then you learn like second most, like just like from muscle memory, right? Or like just by doing the job, and then third was theory. But the mistakes piece it just made me think back to that from the other day.
Well, flipping that into a professional context, I wholeheartedly agree with that, right? Because going to SCTE technical sessions when I was still a technician, I didn't necessarily understand everything that I heard, right? But I retained enough of it to try and put it into practice in the field. And I apologize to all of my former customers that were my science projects, because I would go out and try different things in the network and, learn what worked and what didn't work to try and hone my craft. And it wasn't until later, like through experience and hands-on experiments, like the context of what that person was trying to teach me at the technical session. And at some point the light came on. It's like, oh yeah, now I get it, right? But you hear it, and then you try and put it in practice, and that's the tactile, experiential part, and you're going to make mistakes. But some of the best lessons that I've ever learned in cable television was by just totally hashing it up and getting it wrong, and then finally figuring out what I did wrong, and I'll never make that mistake again.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So that's why I say I watch stuff even if I don't understand it. to try and pull bits and pieces of it in that hopefully will make sense later. Because I do think that like training sometimes builds a puzzle. If you think about a puzzle, you take it out of the box, and what do you do first? You put the outside around it, right? You start with the square pieces and you put those all together, but the middle is still kind of blank. And so that's where the trial and error comes in. The outside is pretty easy. Like that's the framework. It's filling in the rest of the picture that's hard. And that's where the experience and making the mistakes comes in. Because you're going to try and fit, square pegs in a round hole more than once in the process of putting that puzzle together. But once it's done, then the whole thing becomes clear and you learn from your mistakes and it all makes sense after the fact. So I think about training that way, where, these SCTE technical trainings is kind of the outside of the puzzle. The rest in the middle, you got to fill in yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point. All right, I think we're going to pivot at this point. Thanks for everything today, Mike. We truly appreciate you. Before we get into cable dad jokes, I would like to give a shout out to all the chapters that took home hardware this year at CLC. At number 6, we had Piedmont. 5th place went to Central Florida. Shout out to Sadie on that team. 4th place went to Rocky Mountain. Shout out to my co-panelist, Andy Frederick. Number 3, our hometown favorites, Rick, that went to Jeff Haggerty with Lake Michigan. And number 2, Golden Gate. Shout out to Don Simmons and Matt Lee. And then numero uno went to Gateway. So shout out to Dennis and Patrick.
A lot of work that goes in there, and congratulations really to all those chapters that were able to rank at the top there. So pretty awesome. Big accomplishment with the competitiveness to be the number 1 chapter, I'll say. So Eric, I didn't bring a dad joke today. A cable dad joke for that matter.
I've got 2 in the chamber.
You got 2. Mike, did you do your homework? Do you have any cable dad jokes?
Man, I don't think I have one in the can, but I'll try and drum one up here.
All right, Eric, let us have what you have, and then we'll see if it sparks anything with Mike or myself.
How is a meditating monk and a fiber optic cable similar?
I got nothing.
Total internal reflection.
Okay. Yeah,
all right.
I wasn't going to put that together.
You got me.
All right, we'll go with 2.
Let's see what you got.
I'm at a Mexican electronics store and the clerk asked me what kind of cables I was looking for. I said audios. He left and hasn't come back since.
Got it. I got it. I like that one. I like that one a lot. You never cease to amaze, Eric, with the cable dad jokes.
Always got to bring them, right?
I won't pressure you, Mike. You got any? Anything come up?
Yeah. So, a while ago, I caught my son chewing on a hot drop, so I had to ground him.
There you go. Ben, you pulled that out quick. So, very
Rick,
good.
What do you usually say about the subscribe button here for the Spotify?
Oh yeah. If you're not, you gotta. What is it? Slam that subscribe button. We'll get this out on Spotify. Eric usually he'll post this same day.
Shout out to my boy Henry too for the background music on this one.
So we'll share that, and we'll make sure you guys have it there, Mike. If your chapter wants to post it, anything like that, feel free. Mike, you touched on this earlier. To all the moms out there, happy Mother's Day this weekend. Hopefully they're pampered and taken care of. And special shout out to my mom as well. So, Mike, it's just been just an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Your insight, your knowledge, what you do for not just the community, of SCTE, the family that we have at Comcast, but also just the community around. Truly an inspiration. So we really appreciate you coming on today and sharing some of your experiences and things with us.
Well, thank you guys for having me. It was a great pleasure to talk to you on this forum, and obviously work with you guys on a pretty regular basis. But no, I love the concept here, and the ability to get to know people at a deeper level is, you know, something we're trying to do with our chapter stuff too, is to, you know, just continue to build those relationships, build awareness, build support for, you know, the chapters and technical training and the folks that, you know, occupy those chapters. So appreciate what you guys are doing, and thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Eric,
thanks, Mike.
You want to close this up, Eric?
Yeah, well, I think you already did a good job of closing us out, honestly. So thanks for everybody to listening, and we will catch you with episode 11. There's a big surprise coming for that one toward the end of this month. We'll just call it the Canada podcast, and we'll leave it at that.
Perfect with the teaser. So thanks again, Mike. Thanks again, Eric. Everybody, you know, that listens, and all the volunteers that are doing the hard work at SCTE. Keep up the good work. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you next show.
See you guys.